One aspect of video games that I will never fully understand is the prolonged stigma they have had as a medium that should only ever be enjoyed by children. There is nothing about them as a form of entertainment that makes them exclusively for people who have not yet reached adulthood. Claiming this is callous and clearly stated by people who know nothing about games. And yet, I still understand where this idea originates from. Before video games and consoles were considered highly technological devices, they were considered toys and were largely marketed as such. Moreover, some of the most popular franchises of all time have featured cartoonish characters and themes that further cemented this idea very early on. Even though there have been plenty of releases that have come out since then that center around much more mature topics like hyper-realistic violence or romantic relationships, this stigma has remained as an extremely difficult one for the industry to shake. And this isn't at all helped by the fact that in the past, it has been a little bit true. For generations, many kids have spent their childhood playing games, but after a while, they just phase out of it. Is this the case for everyone? No, certainly not. In fact, I definitely feel like the tides are slowly shifting, and people are doing that less and less as they realize more that even if it is considered childish to some, that shouldn't stop you from enjoying what you want in life. Plus, the industry itself has evolved with its fans and, again, made more games that fit a mature audience. But what about the people who did not grow up with gaming? Assumedly, these are folks that know of its existence, but don't care to even give it a chance. To be fair, this is relatively understandable, at least in terms of the financial barrier of entry, and the fact that being at least mildly technologically adept is kind of a prerequisite for trying most popular titles these days. But setting aside those caveats, adults and the elderly have consistently passed over video games as a mind-numbing waste of time that is below them, without seeing how much art and creativity is actually put into these interactive masterpieces. So with all that considered, you can guess what my reaction was, along with so many others, when Food for Dogs went viral.
I am Food for Dogs. Welcome to my channel.
Food for Dogs is a YouTube channel run by an elderly woman named Britta from New Zealand where she talks about everything gaming. Very early into her online existence, people noticed her and started reposting her stuff on places like Twitter and Reddit, talking about how cool it is that someone who is old likes games. However, she's actually not all that special in that regard. Old people liking video games will always be a novelty, and as such, your typical gaming grandma or gaming grandpa will pop up from time to time. But as with most novelties, they are just that, and they quickly lose their luster once people realize what little else they bring to the table outside of irony. Admittedly, I still enjoy them nonetheless. Watching someone who is neither technologically experienced nor invested in the long-standing history of gaming try to figure everything out is pretty entertaining for me. But even then, the effect eventually wears off and we all go back to playing games ourselves and watching people who know a lot about them. But Britta is different. She is, in every sense of the word, a true gamer. Now, this statement is not meant to belittle others who may enjoy playing games, but don't necessarily make it as much of a priority as people like me, or maybe even you. I totally understand that not everybody has a full Dance Dance Revolution setup in their basement, and that's fine. Personally, I view the word gamer as similar to cinephile or reader. Just because I occasionally watch movies, that does not mean that I am a cinephile. I am not someone who makes great efforts to watch every single classic film and new release and analyze them with a critical eye. And just because I read a book or maybe two a year, that does not mean that I am a reader. I am not someone who is constantly enjoying a new book. These words are put in place to distinguish between casual enjoyers and hardcore enthusiasts. And make no mistake, Britta is definitely the latter. She is not someone who just plays one or even a small collection of titles and largely ignores everything outside of that. She plays a lot of games. Ironically, she focuses mainly on JRPGs, which is a genre I've never really had much interest in personally, but even then, she still makes time to experience nearly everything else. almost to the point where I'm convinced that she's played more than I have. And she is also not someone who is ignorant to the larger culture and industry around games. She puts an immense amount of time and effort into not only being a part of the online gaming community as a member, but also as somebody who creates content to further those discussions with her videos. She's even super active in her own comments section, which is pretty rare. I mean, the woman buys figurines, she shares manga on Twitter. Hell, even my own collection pales in comparison to hers. It is abundantly clear how invested she is in gaming and general nerd culture. Granted, she is retired, which makes it easier to devote lots of time to hobbies like this, but man, it is still just so refreshing to see someone like Britta add to the community and in such a significant way. But how did all this happen? Why in her old age did she suddenly find an intense interest in gaming of all things? Well, to save you the hour it would take to watch her full explanation, which you should just go watch anyways, it all started when she won a PS3 from a random giveaway. But not only did she not expect to win, she now had no idea what to do with the thing. Gaming had never been something she partook in, and she didn't feel like this was going to change that. So she simply stashed it away into storage in her house and forgot about it. Typically, that would be where the story ends, and that console would have collected dust for decades, never being even unboxed. But then suddenly, a tragedy struck her and her husband. Now, she doesn't specify what exactly it was that happened, but regardless, it put them into an extremely depressive state. They did a lot to support each other in this time of need, as well as seek counsel in the form of therapy, but still, it was hard. But after a while, in an attempt to get her mind off of things, Britta ended up going through her house and tidying up, and eventually she unearthed the PS3. Yet still, she had no intention of using it, so she attempted to sell it. However, for a myriad of reasons, that task proved more difficult than it should have been. Disgruntled and tired, she decided that she would finally just give in, taking all of this as some sort of sign that she should at least give it a chance. And lo and behold, not only did she immediately fall in love, but she enjoyed it so much that it became a good coping mechanism for her depression. Of course, there was still a huge learning curve to overcome. No matter when you start, gaming requires good hand-eye coordination and a thorough understanding of the typical rules of games, both of which take time to develop. But she pushed through those initial hurdles and quickly became entranced by the medium. Before she knew it, she was amassing large collections of physical copies of games, playing nearly every one of them it seems, and eventually adding to the online discussions around them. And the rest is history. Now, of course, when we zoom out for a second, it's very sad to think that pretty much the only way she was ever going to be introduced to gaming is if she was handed an expensive game console for free, and she became so severely depressed that giving it a try basically became a last-ditch effort. But nonetheless, Britta still gives me hope that regardless of the circumstances, anyone can enjoy video games. Hell, I haven't even bothered focusing on the fact that it's especially impressive that an older woman is playing games, which of course is notable as the female demographic has been pushed away from the industry for decades. However, it is worth noting that she's not too happy about the fact that her online persona is largely dominated by her age and the novelty of it. And I agree, she is much more than just a gaming grandma. She is actually someone who does a lot for the community, especially in terms of keeping the JRPG fanbase alive and well. As someone who also runs a channel exclusively talking about a niche genre, I understand how important that can be. But I think more than anything, what keeps me coming back and tuning in to every single video she releases is her passion. Video games are definitely what I am most passionate about in life, and the way that Britta talks about them reminds me of why they are so great. Whether it's an unboxing haul, or her showing off her collection of enamel pins, or even a discussion about a series I genuinely couldn't care less about, she always has this aura of unadulterated joy. Hell, it was because of her that I was inspired to finally get myself a PS Vita and a copy of Persona 4 Golden. I haven't played it yet, but one step at a time. Hashtag Vita Island. Am I right? Plus, because her videos are something she does purely for fun with no interest in making any money off of it, everything is as authentic as possible. Her enthusiasm is just so earnest and wholesome and different from any other channel I've seen. almost to the point where it reminds me of the childlike wonder we all have when we first start playing games. So maybe in that sense, it is kind of childish, but who cares? The reason so many of us want to relive our younger years is because it was a simpler time. Things were much easier to enjoy, and many of us weren't as cynical as we eventually grew up to be. Playing games is just another form of escapism in an attempt to tap back into those feelings, no matter your age. And I don't know about you, but I would much rather die feeling like a happy kid than a grumpy old fart. And that's what Britta represents for me, a hope that I will continue to be a child well into my elderly years, and I can't thank her enough for that. And in the words of the legend herself, thank you very much for watching. Please keep well. I'm Alex Pasica. Bye-bye.